All right, everybody, welcome once again to the Warp Chatter podcast, the podcast about the Horus Heresy Legion's digital card game. I am your host, Scuff D. This is the podcast coming to you from the Eye of Terror Studios. It is a podcast by players for players. And with me today, I've got a new guest joining us. I've got Axel, the Crab co-host.
This episode has been sponsored to you by Corpse Starch. Today you eat it, tomorrow you be it.
And joining us today on the episode is Pyrrhus of Epirus.
Hello.
Did I pronounce that correctly?
Yeah, I think so. Pyrrhus, yeah.
So,
I think so.
I'll say, yeah, you're like, I think you got my name right. I don't know. I mean, some people call it differently.
There's a chance.
Yeah. Well, so today's episode, we were initially going to be talking, I think, diving deep into the World Cup teams, who the players were, what they're looking like, but there are still some qualifiers that haven't finished up yet. There's still some teams yet to be determined, so we might glaze over how it's shaping up right now, but I don't think we'll be spending as much time on that this episode, and then that might come down either next week or the week following. But we do have some other things to talk about today. We're going to be talking a little bit about the current state of the game, some new developments with the event, some expected spoilers coming out next week. By the time you hear this, the spoilers should be out there. And then also, we're going to be taking a look, I think last week or 2 weeks ago with Karmatos, I kind of mentioned a list that I had been working on, just my own personal rankings of the trait mechanics and how I rank them in terms of tiers S through D, I think I've got on it. I've got on this list here. Yeah. So we're going to go over that today, kind of talk about what those tiers are or how I perceive them, what they include, and then see how these guys feel, if they agree on the order, if they think that some things should be shifted around. Bastion is not on here, so we'll be talking about that too, maybe where that could fit in.
So Scuff, I want to hit you with this real quick.
Yeah.
For some reason, Jammed is 100% labeled as a trait by the devs, and I don't know why.
Yeah. I know. Like, not on the list. I've got it noted here. Not on this list is Jam, Can't Attack, and Stun, because those are statuses. I've never seen a unit
labeled as a trait.
Yeah,
which is weird.
A unit that's like gain jammed. Like, no, it's not a trait. It's something that you could throw on somebody, but I don't think anybody wants that.
No. Well, remember, Berserk is labeled as a bonus for that Chimera troop in the what's it called?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know
if you count it as a bonus. Maybe in those rare instances for that one Chimera, there was a couple of ways. I don't know if they ever fixed it because it was so hard to identify. But like there was a certain way that he could gain 2 traits in hand instead of 1.
It sounds like it would actually be usable then.
It was, because I had a couple games where they threw it down and it had Survivor and Ward, and I was like, that's not right. Or Terror and Ward, or I think at one time it had Berserk and Bloodthirst. So I was like, okay. I mean, it only happened. It was really hard to force. I had to run through, like once it happened to me, I had to run through like 500 games testing, and that's an exaggeration. It was more like 30, but
how dare you not give us the exact number first?
No, it's somewhere in there between 30 and 500. And so anyways, but that was a pain in the butt. I haven't seen it since, but I don't think a whole lot of people play with that troop to begin with. So but before we get into all of that, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. I want to take the time to talk to our guest, get to know Pyrrhus a little bit better. So for those of you who don't know, I'll give a quick intro. Pyrrhus is a content creator. He's got a YouTube channel that he does. He's done videos for Heresy Legions for quite a while. And I know recently started doing some Blood Bowl stuff because you're playing in the Scranian Cup. But Pyrrhus, go ahead and tell us about yourself. What got you into Legions? How long you've been playing? What do you do?
So I've been playing Horus Heresy now, I think, almost, if not 2 years, I think, ish. That might be a lie. I forget. And what got me into it? So I played Magic the Gathering in university a long time ago now, and I was looking for something to do that was sort of 40k related, and I sort of stumbled across this thing, probably like on Facebook or some sort of clickbait, and I was like, ooh. I started playing this, which was a good laugh. In terms of other things that I've played, so I've been playing Warhammer on and off since I was about 10. So that's too long. Like you said, I played Blood Bowl. I think Blood Bowl's my baby. I absolutely love Blood Bowl. But like anything sort of model related. So I sort of away from Games Workshop, I play Star Wars Armada, a game called Victory at Sea. Just modeling in general.
Modeling's always fun.
So you mentioned StarCraft Star Wars. Oh my God, that's a Freudian slip. Star Wars Armada. That was a game I wanted to play, and the buy-in was really steep. Is it still going on, or have they kind of stopped supporting it at this point? Fantasy Flight Games.
So it's still going on. I think it's been bought out by a different company. The problem is obviously with COVID. So in the United Kingdom, playing games has been really difficult.
Yeah.
So I've really fallen out of lockstep with that. But I mean the Facebook group I sort of vaguely keep an eye on. I mean, it's I'm not sure. But it's one of those games where you can sort of get a small rebel and a small Imperial fleet, and as long as you've got someone to play, it's not a problem.
Right. Well, yeah, and that was the thing for me. It was like I'd have to buy 2 fleets. So if I was playing somebody who's like, I don't have the stuff, or I don't want to play, you're like, okay, don't worry, I've got stuff to do. Like when I was playing X-Wing, I would have enough to build, whatever squadron I wanted, but then also an equal portion for somebody to play against. And I enjoy, that's the one niche for me. And I think we talked about Battlefleet Gothic way back when. That's the one niche specialist game that I really miss in Games Workshop is the naval combat or the positioning of starships. Tabletop was fun, moving, troops and squads and tanks around, but just that different theater of war, shooting torpedoes, lining up for broadsides or boarding actions. And I missed that. And for the longest time, I was always keeping are they going to bring that back BFG? Can we get into it? And then they talked about that Star Wars game, Armada. And I was like, okay, so it's a full-on fleet game, right? With just everything's in there: Mon-Cal cruisers, corvettes, super star destroyers, interdictor cruisers. I'm like, oh, I'm getting excited for it. And then they came out at a time when I was like, I can't really afford that now, and I don't know. Reading how it played, it looked like it was okay, a little different than I would have expected, but at the same time, I think it captured both the nuances of fleet management as well as strategy in terms of building your fleet. So I think the thing that really made it fascinating for me is the fact that you shoot before you move, which means you need to plan where you think your opponent is going to be and where you need to be for your next turn's round of firing. So you really do have to sort of plot your firing runs. The other thing that I think is interesting about it, so they've I think that I've only got the original set, which is set in the film, sort of the later film galaxy, but they've started releasing ships for the Clone Wars, so that's another sort of hook, I guess. But yeah, I think the thing that makes it very different from a lot of other games that I've played is the fact that you shoot first, because it means that you have to be very careful where you put your ships, because if you have a small ship like a corvette and you're not careful where you fly it, that super star destroyer is gonna
blow it out the water, blow it out of the sky, and then move towards your next thing. And it's like, no.
Right. Well, yeah, if you think about it, because every game is like, I mean, granted, GW's got the set, hand-to-hand shooting, hand-to-hand phase. Like, and then you got the charge phase in there. But the whole point is, you're moving your units, you're positioning to then take advantage of the following steps, whether it be charging or shooting, depending on what that unit's strengths are. You're positioning them, whether it's pulling back off to the side or running forward ahead. But if you had to do that backwards, where you're like, look, if you're going to get any shooting off, you better have your unit established there before that. And like the closest thing you've got maybe might be like heavy weapons, like if you move, you can't shoot your heavy weapon, but typically those squads are planted in one position anyways, and they're not moving through the course of the whole game. But if you've got a game where that's every turn, the whole phase structure is different. That's interesting. I didn't know that was the timing for it. So that's pretty cool, because I know in X-Wing, they kind of do something similar where it's based off of pilot skill determines turn order. So the highest skill pilots go last. So basically, at that point, like they shoot first, but they move last. So it gives them the opportunity to blow things away. And I believe it's been years since I played, but I believe that was the whole point. So like you could have Han Solo flying circles around a bunch of TIE rookie pilots, just because you really kind of get to see what they do before you decide what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like a fun system.
Yeah, it was. So what?
I didn't play X-Wing, but I think like some friends in my club played, and the thing I always noticed was they always used to just sort of kill their own guys flying into asteroids.
Yeah, that happens a lot. I don't. There's not. Like for 40K, there's kind of the recommended, like, hey, this is how much terrain you should have on the board. It's always nice to throw down extra pieces of terrain. And for X-Wing, all the games that I played, I'm like, dude, we've got like 20 asteroid tokens. I'm putting 20 asteroid tokens on the board. And half the game was like really just like, we might have put too many asteroid tokens. And you're trying to like figure out plot courses so you're not crashing. Because the thing with that game is, if you end your turn in the same, like touching base to base basically with a starship or a like an asteroid, there's a collision there. You have to run. You might run the chance of taking damage or critical. But if you are in the same space as a enemy ship, you're not touching. You can just kind of imagine like one's above or below the other in the 3D realm of space, but you both basically void your turn. Like you don't get to do anything as a result of that, because you're both maneuvering to avoid collision. So half the game is avoiding collisions, and then you get like 1 or 2 rounds of good concentrated fire that really kind of turn the tide. You mentioned playing Magic. Was there any other card games that you played before that, or just Magic was the primary?
Magic was the only one really. So I'd been into modeling, like miniature modeling in school, and then when I got to university, I continued that with the university club. But some of my friends who I made didn't do miniature modeling; they played Magic, so I started playing that. That was a lot of fun. So. There's like in shops, I don't know how much you guys have played, but there's like a weekly gaming night called Friday Night Magic, which we held on a Wednesday because just
because you can.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, just because you can. It was really good fun. So it was a really nice sort of social thing, and I think that was another thing that I quite liked about Horus Heresy when I started. Was like I immediately noticed there was this lodge thing, and it took me a little bit of a while to work out what the lodge thing actually was. But once I worked it out, it was nice trying to sort of find a community and just obviously getting to know all the other players and stuff. That was really nice.
Mm-hmm. With 40K, or do you play Warhammer Fantasy or Warhammer 40K? Like which armies are your preference?
Well, I mean, so I played both. I prefer 40k. I started on fantasy, so I can't remember what set number it was, but I started on the one with the box set with Lizardmen and Bretonnians. So, so I'm like a 10-year-old, and I go into this store, and this guy is like, "Oh, do you want to play these lizard people? These knights?" I'm like, "Oh, lizard people sound great." So like we literally set up our guys, run into each other, and like this Games Workshop employee just slaughters me, like just annihilates my Saurus, flanks my skinks, and he kicked my ass, and I loved it. So I got started. But yeah, I think so. In fantasy, I played lizardmen and dwarves, and in 40k. I started off playing orcs, but I very quickly moved on to Iron Warriors, and I've sort of stayed there ever since. Really.
Yeah, Iron Warriors.
I think you're the third Iron Warriors player, like on the podcast. It must be a thing. I think. I mean, as far as like Chaos Marines go, for the longest time, maybe they weren't necessarily the poster boys, but I think they were the easiest undivided to get into.
How dare you?
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, think about it, because like, I want to say like Black Legion really didn't kind of like, was it 5th edition when they got a new codex, and it was more like Renegade Marines, and here in Blackheart was like he's the new, he's been around for a while, but he was like, hey, he's got new rules, and you can have these new, you can actually now like have different Death Guard bikers, and they like up the potency of all the Chaos Devoted, but you didn't have to run them in a dedicated army of just Emperor's Children or just World Eaters, and you could give them different things to do. But I don't think like Black Legion got to be like the poster boys again until this recent like 7th, 8th edition, really. Yeah,
so like, I mean, the thing that appealed to me about like sort of Iron Warriors as a sort of undivided faction, I think, was the way in which their demonicness manifested, because I don't know, I was like weirdly sort of secular about Chaos, really. I wasn't so much interested in the demons. And I didn't really want to spend a great deal of time modeling them, because I just really like the Space Marines. So the idea that like the idea that they sort of manifested their corruption through their machines and through their augmentations like really appealed to me.
Yeah, like you might get some horns or tusks, but you've got obliterators. You've got those
and obliterators are cool.
Yeah, or just like the chaos possessed, whether it's Rhino, Land Raider, Vindicator, like the war machines, the fucking the Defiler is still great in my mind. Like, I don't know how effective it is on tabletop anymore, but just like visually, it's intimidating.
Crab.
It's not great, but it's pretty good. Oh yeah, it definitely looks like a giant crab, which makes me happy.
Yeah. Every time I see that, like, my dreadnoughts get all envious. It's like, oh, we could be cool too.
So I don't know if you guys remember the one demon that I used to run was the Demon Prince, and this was like there was an edition where you could like customize your Demon Prince. You could give like wings and strength and invulnerable saves and all this sort of stuff. And there was a really brutal Slanesh upgrade called Lash of Submission, and it was horrifying. So I basically, when you in your psychic phase, you like passed a psychic test, and if you beat an opposed roll against an enemy squad, you could move it, right? So what you and the combat rules at the time were quite complicated. It was during Games Workshop's complicated stage, and basically, like, you charged, you then had like a follow-up consolidation move, and then anyone within 2 inches could fight. So what you would do, you would Lash of Submission so that their troops were like, maxed is like 1.5 inches apart from each other, like just in a line backwards. You'd charge the front guy, and then obviously they'd move in a couple of guys. They wouldn't really be able to get many attacks against your Demon Prince. your Demon Prince would wail on them and win the combat by 2 or 3. You'd break their leadership and then run the entire squad down.
Yeah.
It was horrifying.
Yeah. It's speaking of, I mean, because that kind of that formation or just like spreading out your units that way, that always bothered me when people would do it deliberately. Like, did you ever play one of those games where like you've got somebody, it wouldn't matter what type of army they were, but normally it'd be like a 10-man squad, and they would at the start of the game measure them like basically from one side of the long edge of the board to the other, like 2 inches apart. If they saw that you had any sort of ordnance weapon or template weapon, and they would just like, so basically this one 10-man squad would take up a good span of like 30 feet, or not 30 feet, 36 inches, 20 plus between the two of them. And it was just annoying. It's like, come on. They're like, well, you can only shoot at the one model. That's the one model that's closest to the range of the weapon. And it was just like using, I don't know, there was those points in certain editions where like, yeah, the rules let you do it, and that's the way the rules work, but you're really breaking the flow of the game or the vibe of the game at that point, where you're playing the rules more than you're actually playing like, look, keep your guys together, your squads, yeah,
those are the worst,
moving as a unit. Yeah,
and these are the guys who rules lawyer you as well. Yes. So they'd like play right within the confines of the rules, but outside the sort of the norms of what it is to be like, sociable.
They're the type of people that yell at you if you go off the game master book for just slightly.
Yeah, man.
That, or they're like, it would, if it worked in their favor, but if it didn't, they'd ask for leniency, or like, oh well, I mean, it's just a little bit here. Like, you quickly, if you're playing in a store long enough, or a tournament, or in a certain community, like eventually you figure out who those people are and you try to steer clear of them. But those first couple encounters, especially if you're a newer player, can really just irk you, like turn you off sometimes. Like, oh, okay, well that wasn't fun. Nor do I want to really play that person again. Like, I played one time in a shop. It was the first time I ever played at the shop. I'd moved there to go to college, and it was the only local store and that played tabletop games. They had a bunch of 40K. They had Confrontation and I forget the why am I forgetting the other name of the one game with the siege engines?
Oh God!
It's like I want to say Forge. I don't know. Is that a thing? Like it's got the war forges.
I know what you're talking about, but
they're like steam powered, right?
Yeah. What is that?
I know what you mean. I can't remember what it's called.
I can't remember the name of it, but they had that. I mean, they had a lot of stuff. They were a game store, so they had a lot of stuff. And I played one game. I showed up. I was like, "Hey, does anybody want to play 40K?" This is like, "Yeah, I'll play you." I'm like, "Okay, cool." So I'm playing, Imperial Guard, Last Chancers. And he's like, okay. So then he writes up his list, like right out there's like everything has got heavy bolters, everything, like he's got like, everything's heavy bolters on his speeders. He's got bikes with bolt. Like, I get that you're Space Marines, but like you deliberately kit your list out against, I was just playing my pre-made, like, 1500 point Imperial Guard. Like in the first round, like all my Imperial Guard had been obliterated by heavy bolter fire. I'm like, okay, I see what we're doing here.
I see that fun was not part of the party.
That was really, I was like, okay, I see that you want to feel good about yourself, but you're missing the point of just a casual pickup game. Like, there wasn't anything at stake. Like, you could have just hey, yeah, I'll play this game. Like, here's my.
This was not a tournament.
Yeah.
You are not going to the pro leagues. Don't do me like this.
Those kind of situations just kind of always turn you off. You're like, oh, okay, well, I'll go back and play with my friends in the garage. I'll play the same 4 guys because I know if they get out of hand or they become assholes, I can punch them in the gut and give them shit.
Physical violence will keep everything
That's
maintained.
It. Like, hey, you know what? You don't really want to like piss off your friends, but if you get pissed off,
friend
like a complete
constantly
stranger,
pacified with physical violence.
Well, we had a bit of a system, and so I mean, for a very brief time, I worked with Games Workshop, and we had a bit of a system in our store in terms of people being over competitive. Where if you as a customer felt that someone was getting a bit too big for their boots, they would be gently, and they hadn't been in the store before, they would be gently directed to play a game against me.
So you could like lay
and
it
like,
down.
well, I was you know I was alright. I was pretty sort of competitive, and I was always really friendly about it. But like, but I had a bit of a, you know, I had a reasonably designed deck. So not deck, army. So I could at the very least sort of keep them away from the customers who just wanted to chill and have a nice time, while still like, you know, giving them a decent game.
So
Like,
so everybody wins at that point. They get something that they want, and then the people who don't want to get like tabled are having a good
yeah.
experience.
Well, the first time I basically really played 40k after a bit of a gap between uni and Games Workshop. I said, like, you know, I used to play, and you know, and so I went to, in, I don't know how it is in the US, but in Games Workshop in the UK, they have like they don't really call it this anymore. It used to be called Vets Night on a Thursday evening, where it's just open gaming. And I was like, oh, I can't really remember the rules. I've made a list. It's probably going to be good. And this was loosely based off one of my old Iron Warrior lists. You know, lots of melter guns, rhinos, all that sort of stuff. You know, and basically, and the sort of game went through, and because I was still relearning it, I'd be like, right, you know the rules better than I do. And this is quite a cocky guy. Like, he was like, oh, you used to play. I bet I can, you know, take you for a ride. And I was like, okay. And so every time I wanted to do something, I'd be like, right, just checking, because I can't remember. If I move this guy here, I can shoot that squad, yeah? And he was like, yes. It's like, cool. And if I move that squad, I can then charge that squad that I've just shot. And he's like, yeah. So okay. And if I was to move these metal guns here, they can shoot that rhino with like 2 dice on the penetration. He's like, yeah. So like, just every time I had a rules question, it was like, is this how I beat the crap out of your guys? And he was like, yeah.
Yeah.
And I tabled him in like 3 or 4 turns. But like, you know, so I worked out that other people find that a bit annoying. So if there was someone who's getting a bit too big for their boots, I'd just sort of, you know, go through the whole thing, just asking them if it was legal for me to do this to them. They'd be like, yeah, yes, you can do that.
That's funny.
You know.
See, I would do that sometimes, but not to be irritating, but like I knew my rules. I knew my army. And I mean, like, if I'm playing a card game, it's the same thing. But like, if I'm playing somebody and they put down a card, I'm like, what does that do? And I ask them, like, okay, so what does that weapon do? Oh, well, that gives me like, oh, okay, so how does that work? I like just ask them the questions because I want to know, you know, not so that way they're like, okay, I rolled, you know, 3 4s, so that means this, and this happens. Like, I want to know ahead of time so I can plan accordingly. I know my rules, and I know my weapons, and I know the general game rules, but I don't know all the special abilities or special game text. And if there's cool interactions or surprises that pop up later, hey, that's fine. But like, that was my always thing. Like, sometimes we'd be like, yeah, why do you always ask, like, what does that do? Like, you know the game. Like, I know my game. I don't know your game. I've never played with Tyranids, so I don't know what all their units can do. I know I've seen it. It's not pretty. It's not something I want to happen, but I don't know if every unit you have has rending claws and flesh talons or whatever, flesh hooks, and yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, I had a Dark Eldar player, and I mean, you know, I was fairly rules confident, but you know, like you said, you don't know the ins and outs of every single little bit of the rules, isn't it? You know, because you said it's like the Bible, but you know, somehow with more rules, and so this was in a tournament in Nottingham, and he rammed with his, like, one of his hovercraft, one of my units off an objective. And I was sitting there going, like, I'm sure you can't do that, because I mean, just, you know, in terms of logistics, I was like, how on earth does a skimmer ram? That sounds like it explodes. We got into a bit of a sort of disagreement about it, because I was like, show me in the rules, please. No, not in a nasty way, but I was just like, I'm pretty sure that's not the case.
Right.
And he was like, oh, trust me, I know the rules. And I was like, okay. And then sort of afterwards, I was speaking to one of my mates, and he's like, well, on his list, did he have, they have like a special upgrade that they can get to RAM? I was like, no, I don't know what this upgrade is. So I had to take it to a TO in the end because it basically he made that move illegal.
Right. Yep.
Sort of in retrospect, because like you're saying, you don't know the other person's sort of rule set, but then sometimes either they don't, or as I suspect in the case of that guy, if I was being uncharitable, he knew the rule set and chose to ignore it.
Yeah, that's the worst. Is there are those people out there, and that goes for any game, but I mean, where the game or the tournament kind of like, it just kind of like helps foster that. Like, yeah, you might not know, like in a card game, you can always ask for a judge if you don't know what's going on. If it's, you can do that with any tournament, you should be able to, but some of these games have got so many rules or nuances, and you don't know, like, you're not allowed to see their army list sometimes. Like, not necessarily 40k, but there's what's the game? Is it Infinity? I think Infinity, initially when that came out, I don't know if they've changed this, but I remember there was a situation at the store that I was at where they had a tournament, and Infinity was like, you showed your list. Like, you didn't have to show your list, essentially. Like, that was, you had your list, but that was not visible to your opponent because there's a lot of units that were like surprise units or they were stealth units. So your opponent isn't even supposed to know that you've got those. And through the course of this tournament, this one player used this unit like 3 different games to win. And like, they were like a surprise infiltrator unit. And they weren't in his list. Like, he was just pulling them out of his model box when he needed them. And they found out, when the tournament was over, like, he booked it, like, he won and he booked it, and then they found out after, like, no, that's not on his list. Like, the judge had, he had everybody's list, and everybody was talking about it. He's like, no, that's not what he was playing. But, like, no, he used that unit against me, and like, so he got blacklisted from tournaments for that. Like, but there are always those people who just like feel, I don't know, like, what do you win at that point? Like, you lose integrity, you lose anybody wanting to play a game with you. I don't know. That's unfortunate, because especially when you're asking them, like, are you sure that's something you can do? Like, no, I'm sure. I'm sure I can do that.
It's like those guys who like spam the chat and then DC for no reason.
Yeah, I think we all know the user we're thinking of right now, and I believe everyone knows old Nep by name at this point.
Yeah, F that guy.
It's like Voldemort. He he who must not be named, man.
We don't want to give the guy any more power. He doesn't have.
Listen,
power.
The minute the TOS made in honor of you, you got a lot of power.
It's bad.
But yeah, just like you're sitting there, like, what do you gain from doing it? And
chat spammers tell us it's apparently intoxicating.
I don't get it. Like, yeah, I don't. Whether it's a rush or the feeling of like, haha, I'm thumbing my nose at you. Like, do you?
Yeah.
I don't even feel that way in like public. Like, I don't want to. I have no desire. You got to figure. There's something with those people who do that they just got nothing else going for them in their lives, where they've got to act that way, or that win has got to mean more to them. And it's just a digital card game. It's not a real game. There's no cash at stake. It's just electronic data that we all enjoy, but it means more to than others.
A bit too much.
Just makes me think
kind of a problem.
It just makes me think of like the villain from Yu-Gi-Oh! Bridge, just like, meh, we must beat them in a children's card game.
Yes, a children's card game. It's what it is, to a degree. I know a lot of people don't like that when we say that, because people have said that before in the Discord. It's not a children's card game. It's a card game. The age limit is for everybody. I mean, geez, I'm a grown-ass man playing the game. I love it. But at the end of the day, it's not rocket science. It's not R-rated. Anybody can play it. I think there's quite a few people under the age of 20 who play the game. So it's not. It's designed to be for everybody out there. And unfortunately, sometimes that ropes in people who take it too far, take it too personal. Yeah. Just try to remember to have fun.
Speaking of kids, like, it was always an awkward thing in like Games Workshop when you'd have that parent come in, they'd be like, yes, and my child's been talking about like Dark Eldar. You know, do you think they'd be a good? And this is like back in the day of the meta models, and it'd be like, do you think they'd be a good, starting army for my 11-year-old? I'd be like, maybe start with a less tit-focused, list.
No, that's where you look them in the eye and go, maybe Slaanesh is what you're looking for.
Like, the models are great and all, but that's so hard when they're young like that. Like, I had my dad's friend,
especially that long ago. That's back when you could have like the slave models that wouldn't do anything but would just sit on the table.
And they'd have the nipples all painted, darker than the regular flesh, so they stood out really nice. Not me, my friend. He painted those. Not me. I want to make that clear.
A person I know, but isn't named me.
I never owned those models, nor did I.
He also owned a basement in Las Vegas.
Yeah, but my dad's friend had a kid who grew up, and I think he was like 12 or 13, and he wanted to play 40K. I don't know how he heard about it, so. My dad's friend asked me, he's like, hey, yeah, so my son's asking me about this 40K, and that's like what you play, like what, and I'm like, okay, how do I explain this? I'm like, it's a fun game, and I think, I was like, I don't, because, okay, they're Mormons, so it was like, this is not going to go over.
Wow.
So I was like,
just look him in the eye and go demons, and walks away.
Well, that's why I was just basically like, it's a fun game in outer space, and it's really expensive to get into. And I just kind of put it that like, I'm like, it's going to cost you about $300 for him to buy an army that he's going to want to play with, and that was it. That was it. I'm like, oh, okay, then we'll look into something else. It's like, good.
You didn't have to explain to the kid why they're space demons, or the father rather.
Yeah, you don't want them to have that talk, or like, why is your kid interested in blood for the blood god? Do you know what that means?
Why is he sacrificing people to Corrin? Is a good question.
Yeah, well, you never know with the Mormons. Maybe that is something. Who's to say?
It's interesting.
I don't know.
And like that, every Mormon just stopped watching.
Every Mormon is just like, wait a minute, and they just pick up their chain axes, and that's proof. Well, enough talk on that. Let's get into actual Legions talk. Well, we've got some time here. I think we've got a couple minor things to kind of talk about. We've got the new, the event has gotten reinforcements today, or yesterday rather, which is the Campa Diaz, which is the new Imperial Fist Warlord.
His art being fantastic.
Which is pay 2 energy to put out a turret. And then obviously we had DeBiran join the reinforcements for... Well, not DeBiran. DeBiran was already on there, wasn't he? Amon.
Yeah, we got Amon. Yep.
Amon turn.
The custodian Amon.
Yeah. So we've got some new reinforcements there. What are your guys' thoughts on Campa Diaz and his ability?
He's good for if you already got front lines down, but as an initial thing, especially with Valdor being in the event, it's like, really, this is going to go well for you.
Yeah, I agree. I think the 35 health is nice, but in like the first couple of turns, if you're spending 2 energy on the turrets, you're sort of just using it to distract your opponent from hitting you in your face.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. He's got a cool art. His voice lines are good. But yeah, when it comes to his ability, I think his ability is more like once you get some protection down, you might use it. I haven't. Mm-hmm. I've been running Valdor for the most part. It's like a free reckoning with him. If somebody is not thinking about it, they're just like, I'll just put this. I'm like, okay, thanks. I'll hit reckoning for sure this game. I want to like him, and I think if he was in the game and we had you had a good designed deck that could take advantage of that ability, that could be annoying. But I'm not seeing it. I think there are better choices out there.
Oh yeah. Even if it's just like give it resolution for just this turn,
mm-hmm.
Now you would see a lot more usage in it. But then again, you'd probably see that go way too good.
That could be rough. Yeah.
I think
I was hoping you got Ron. Oh, sorry.
No, I was saying, I think the other difficulty with him as well is that obviously a lot of the ways in which the other troops create turrets is either resolution or the other one, the relentless.
Rally?
And so often by the time you've got that frontline defense out there, you've probably also got something else that's generating you turrets anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And at that point, either your board is full or that 2 energy is spent better on a supporting tactic or other ability because you're going to get that spot. Yeah.
Have you done that horrible thing, Scuff D, if you're playing the Custos? Have you done that horrible thing of playing that 2E tactic on your 6/5 first strike to give it battle on a may act again?
Oh, that's so great. I've had only like one opponent who like stuck around for the turn after because I don't think they realized that was like a permanent buff. But yeah, that ends games. Like I was like, oh, for 8 energy, or better yet, if my swooping hunting eagle has already stayed on the board, and then even if they throw down Defender of Terra, it's over. It's like, okay, none of these units mean anything to me. They're all gone. It's fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Deleted instantly.
Well, it takes a little bit of time to cycle through, the targeting, but that's what's going to happen. They're going to get deleted. I got Valdor up to an 18 attack with his Reckoning off. That was fun with Bloodthirst, so I felt good about that.
Yeah,
brutal.
That was exactly. I was like, that's good. That's my highlight. I'll keep it going. So if you're hearing this, there might be about 12 hours left to keep playing the event, and if you want to play some games, try out Valdor. Give it a whirl.
Oh, yeah. He's an unsung hero, this event, for those not running him.
Definitely. Well, speaking of, by the time this podcast airs, we've got the Sisters of Silence spoilers that are taking place this week, or that have already taken place by the time this episode airs, but they'll be out within a week for us. Tomorrow for everybody else. I've not seen images yet. I think I'm supposed to be getting those tomorrow.
All right.
But I'm looking forward to that faction. Are you guys hyped for the Sisters of Silence more, or the Agents of the Sigilate at this point?
Definitely Agents of the Sigilate, but I really want to see their, I guess you would call them Primarch tier. Her name's escaping me, but her entire gimmick was no one could see her. Her blank powers was so strong, so I want to see how they can incorporate that.
You're talking about Kroll?
Yeah, her entire gimmick was her blank was so strong she was practically invisible, and even when she inevitably dies, her killer, who, spoilers real quick, is Karn, doesn't even realize she died and only noticed because his kill tracker went up a tick.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be really interested to see if the Sisters of Silence have, like if their mechanics are useful is the wrong word, but like not too niche,
Mm-hmm.
like you know, because obviously in the real, I say the real, in the setting they had a very particular, set of skills. So it's going to be interesting to see how they make them sort of broadly appealing to, general play.
I was thinking about this today, and I know it's all speculation. Somewhere down the road, this isn't going to matter. But do you think that their warlords will all be 30 hit points, or do you think they will do 35? Because I mean, like if you look at the factions, like we've got Astartes who have 30 and 35, and we've got Primarchs who have 40. But when it comes to the neutral warlords, like the Tech Priests have got 35, the Imperial Army have got 30 hit points. Like it seems like
chaos all over the place.
Yeah, like it seems like kind of like a standard, like where like if you're just a base human, GW or Everguild is just going to have them set at 30. But for a faction, like I don't know if they would do that.
Doubt they will. It wouldn't make sense.
Yeah,
there's a high chance because I'm pretty sure Luther is unmodified.
Luther,
isn't he just a normal dude?
No,
or is Corphaeron normal?
Him and Luther and Corphaeron were not full Astartes, but they were heavily
no, but they had something.
Yeah, they were heavily modified.
At the same time, in the same world where Rom, who's almost on par with a Primarch, is a 30 HP, I think they can stretch it a bit and make a Sister of Silence a 35 or a 40.
I would like to see them at a standard like 30, 35, 35, and 40. Like, that it makes sense to me, especially considering the fact that they're going to be a faction. But if they didn't do that, I would I would have to wonder what that would mean for their abilities. Like if you're going to take away 10 hit points from their legendary, then what are they gaining in the difference? How much powerful is that ability going to be, or passive, or reckoning, or whatever?
I mean, it sounds like it might be quite. I mean, they might do the 30, 35, 40 just because then it sort of creates sort of a balancing system that they can sort of tier their warlord abilities to. I think potentially if you've got a legendary at 30, like you're saying, what sort of ability would you have to give them? It might be more difficult for them to balance just on a sort of a broader gameplay thing.
Yeah, I agree. So I just kind of wondered. I was just thinking about that today. I was like, I wonder, because the sisters have got a set of skills, but they are humans. Whereas the custodians are modified. I mean,
yeah, heavily.
The next closest thing that you've got are the tech priests, who have got bionic enhancements. I mean, even an Ogren as a warlord has just got 30 HP. Cork doesn't have 35, right? He's got 30.
I'm pretty sure he has 35.
If he has 35, then I'll be happy. It's been a while since I played with Cork, but yeah.
Yeah, Cork's got 35.
Does he? Okay, good. Well, then he should. He should.
That makes total sense.
He's got a turkey leg for an arm. I mean, come on. The guy should have 35 hit points. Well, also going with that, some stuff that's going on. We have the April decklist contest ended. The decklist contest that I hold every month. For April, the theme was fortified. I haven't done, as of this recording, I haven't announced the winners yet. But I did want to do a quick shout out, because this was the highest submission that I've ever had. And I've had a couple like pretty high ones. But I think between it being, new expansion time, a lot of people were gunning for the gold and were submitting some ideas, and maybe the theme itself was pretty appealing or pretty general. But I had 27 submissions for the fortified.
Hey, nice.
Yes. So
nice.
by the time you're hearing this, I want to announce the May decklist contest theme is close combat. That's another broad term, but that's for May. I figured around this time we should be getting whatever the factions were going to be, and we're talking Siege of Terra, and we're getting a lot of that's the grittiest defenses going in at it. You've got people breaching walls and close combat. So that's the theme for May. So first place gets 1,000 gold, second place gets 500 gold, third place gets 300 gold, which goes a long ways for new faction crates, or new expansion crates when they release the neutrals. So if you are interested in submitting for the May decklist contest, get that in to me either via Reddit, Facebook, Discord, PM, however which way you reach me. That contest deadline submissions are May 25th, and I just want to shout that out and get that out there before I forget by the end of it all. But I was really excited to see, I think just in general, all last week, over the weekend, and through the course of the month with the decklist contest, I've seen a good turnout of players, whether they're new, old, or returning, really interested and hyped for the expansion. And I think we talked about this with LCFR. I think this expansion has got so much anticipation for it, because it's Terra, because it's, it's Imperial Fist, but it's also Sisters of Silence, which so many people have wanted to see for a long time. Agents of the Sigilate, which is an aspect that those who know the lore have kind of wanted to see or hoped to see. So this is really, really good to see. And I'd like to see or hear numbers from Everguild at some point to see how it's looking on their end. Because I gotta feel like they've gotten a spike in player base.
Oh, definitely. I know a lot of people were waiting out for IF. I know for certain you were one of them, Scott.
Yeah.
my boys were already in this game when I started playing, so I was happy already.
Hey, well, that's nice when you can just jump in and the faction that you want to play is ready and good to go. All right, well, are you guys ready to talk about these traits?
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, I'm ready.
All right, so
we're about to talk why Sentinel is the best one, obviously.
It is
tied with Maintenance.
Clearly superior.
Why else would you custodians have them?
Hang on here just a second. So the list I sent out to you guys, I've worked on for a bit, went through, listed all of the traits, and then I figured out, or at least in my mind, how I would classify them from S tier to D tier. And each of the tiers kind of has got certain qualifications, like what makes it S tier, what makes it D tier. So just before we go through what's in each tier, basically what I want to break it down is, what the tiers are. And again, the only things that are not included in this list currently is Bastion, Jam, Can't Attack, and Stun. Now, Jam, Can't Attack, and Stun are statuses. They're not traits, although, as Axel said, for some reason every guild thinks that Jam is a trait. It's not. And Bastion, I just haven't had a chance to figure out where to put on this list because I'm not quite sure where it's going to end up. But for D tier is kind of those traits that do absolutely not just nothing, but they're actually negative. They have negative implications. They actually hold you back. There's some sort of penalty to them. There's no pro to them whatsoever. C tier is relatively a trait that essentially has got conditional usage, but is not dependable or is not like going to change the pacing of a board or game if those conditions aren't met. B tier are those traits which are fairly good, that either prolong a unit's capabilities, productivity, impact in the board state, or some such. So they basically make a unit or a card more than it is. A tiers are just solid tiers that there's not a whole lot of negative, or not to say negative, but situational uses. They're always going to have some benefit, but they may not all be game winning. They're just consistent, constantly available for access that you can depend on. This effect is going to go off. This trait is going to be useful for at least one turn, whatever it is. Or if it's just one trigger, one attack, the A tier is dependable and reliant. And then the S tier are those tiers which basically either deny an opponent's interaction with them, or straight allow you to take free reign, whether that is by taking action before your opponent can deal with it, or denying them the ability to deal with this card effect, this ability, as it were. This is going to happen, and there's nothing that your opponent can do about it. So, with all those definitions out of the way, take a look at the D tier. We'll start at the bottom, because I think you mentioned Sentinel, and that is in the D tier list.
Definitely.
It's a short list. It's a short list, but D tier, I've got Berserk, Sentinel, and Maintenance.
I don't think we can even dispute for those. Like, we can all agree there is no upside to any of them.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was agreeing.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think... Oh, sorry.
Oh, go for it.
I was going to say, I think the only upside Berserk has is I think there's at least one card in the game that says, if troop has Berserk, do blank. Maybe in the World Eater card pool. I may just be getting it confused with the ones that give Berserk and a stat buff, but...
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen a card benefit from Berserk.
No.
if anything, you want a troop that has got an ability with Berserk, so at least you can use, like Giger Fellhand, right? He can use his ability, but you have to either use his ability or attack with him. You don't have a choice. You have to do something with that unit, and that kind of can hamper you. It's not huge, like for Har, that kind of plays into certain games, but late game, that could become, a liability, and that swings everything. With the troop, it doesn't give you anything. Like, you're already going to attack with a troop. Okay, it does nothing for you. You might as well just have a blank text on a troop rather than have Berserk at that point. So, yeah, I didn't feel bad putting those 3 in the D.
Wow.
Now, C tier, I've got Unstoppable, Quest, Rage, Drop Pod, Sacrifice, Poison, and Siege. Thoughts?
Now, I just want to dispute the poison one, because the wording of that got me a bit annoyed earlier because of everyone going, "Oh, poison! Bastion ignores poison.
Oh, it should
poison
be-
can't affect Bastion. Bastion, it's poisonous."
You're right. That's true.
It's
It should
not
be
major,
poisonous. Yeah.
But enough people have hit me with, Bastion makes you immune to poison, where I go, really? And they're like, yeah, if a troop has poison, no, that's poisonous, that's different.
Yeah,
I
that's
had my hopes up. I saw the goddamn board wipe Death Cloud doesn't work on my IF boys.
Oh, no, you're right. It should be poisonous, not poison. Poison is a
Nothing major.
status applied by poisonous troops.
Mm-hmm. Besides that, I mean, yeah, I can... Siege has no real upside. It's sometimes a more potent ability, and it will just play after the next turn. Sacrifice is really annoying. I'd rather have Backlash any day of the week.
Mm-hmm.
And Poisonous usually doesn't do much, because the only time I ever really get it is on a 2/7 with Unstoppable. Goddamn bugs. Forget their names.
I think of the C tier, the one I think that is of most sort of that would be of most appeal to me would be Unstoppable. Like, that just seems to have more utility.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Well,
it's the highest in terms of the list. I've got it there at the highest because, yeah, if your opponent's got a front line, you can get over it. You can do something with it. It's not contingent on your opponent doing anything else other than playing a front line. Having Unstoppable on a Warlord is fantastic, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like that's like Sanguinius, Kabanda, Quorix. Those are great Warlords, not just because of the card pool, but because of late game, their reach is solid.
Yeah.
So I agree. I think that's the highest up there, but it is. I mean, if they don't have a front line, it doesn't do anything for you. Just
As a word bearer player, man, I love getting it after a little bit, because it's like you can't even hide behind it at this point. Not only can you not delete them off the board, but you're not hiding.
yeah. Well, like a Dark Martyr with a mutation, or not a mutation.
Yeah. Demon Host.
A Demon Host, a Dark Gift.
A Dark Blessing, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah, they're mild in what they do, but they're not huge. They're not huge swings. I think if anything, like Unstoppable could swing a board if your opponent's protecting a key troop, if they've got like a front line, but again, it's kind of contingent on your opponent playing a specific thing. Outside of that,
I think the appeal of Unstoppable, perhaps in comparison to the C tiers, is that, I'd say almost, if not all, factions have something that can block your path to the enemy warlords. So I guess, unlike, say, I don't know, Sacrifice, where you might not be able to use that effectively in every situation, like with Unstoppable, it's conceivable, at least in every game, that you could get something out of it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So no matter what, there's always neutral front lines, and some people will run some crazy things.
That's true. Or front lines with
And
Survivor.
I guess.
Oh, also we're in a meta of desperate defense. Being able to ignore those two fatties is always nice.
Yeah, I mean, these are based off of without meta in mind. I mean, as the traits are there, because meta's going to mutate. Meta's going to shift, right? I mean, some of these things, Unstoppable could be good against a desperate defense, but if that goes away and suddenly people aren't playing frontline, or they're not playing, they're playing mono warlords, does it do anything for you? Whereas opposed to something like, backlash ability it's going to happen regardless of whether they've got troops or a warlord. Like, that unit's going to die at some point in the course of the game. So, I mean, when I made the list, I made it without the meta in mind, because that was the intent. But I could see a case for Unstoppable being a B tier in that regard.
Yeah. It's, at the current state, a lot better than, say, hell, right before the card got added.
Yeah, that's true.
Before then, it'd be like, oh, it's nice, but like not necessary. But now it's like, oh, every other game, I better have it.
Mm-hmm.
Though I used to view flank as a demon host trait as not that high until I started running the Canuses.
Oh yeah.
Oh man, that Canis does not like getting hit by my flanking Dark Martyrs.
Oh, if they get that, like that's the only time where it's a really good thing, because most of the time, 9 times out of 10 for me, it's like, if I get a flanking demon host, it's not what I wanted. It's doesn't do anything for me. Great.
What's even worse is generating flank on a troop that already has Unstoppable, and it's a turn after he's already been played.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's just like, oh wow, this is pointless.
Well, moving into the B tier then. So we'll table Unstoppable, and some we might move into the B tier, but with what is in B tier, I've got Bloodthirst, Terror, Frontline, Backlash, Survivor, Battle Honor, Cleave, Pack, and Landing. Thoughts?
I'm going to perhaps be a little controversial here. I feel Battle Honor could belong in C tier.
Yeah, it really depends on the content of the Battle Honor, and the fact that Battle Honor does not trigger on it's the troop itself's death. Then again, I feel like if it did, you could have some broken potential there.
So, I mean, I guess the only reason I would suggest that maybe it's C tier is not necessarily because of Battle Honor in of itself, but because of the effect that it triggers.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that like the use of Battle Honor, or perhaps the appeal is situational on the effect that it has. I can't think off the top of my head, but I'm sure there are some Battle Honor troops that stat-wise might be okay, but you just wouldn't take because of the Battle Honor. Like, it doesn't add value to the card.
Yeah, there are a couple. I mean, like,
I know several that are the other way around, where it's like, oh, that's okay. Oh, that Battle Honor.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's pretty mixed bag when it comes to Battle Honor.
Sardarian has got a great Battle Honor, whereas Naga Heil gets you a Mark of Chaos. Or is it the Emperor's Children?
Hammer of Justice
Hammer
or
of Justice
something?
gains a Mark of Chaos. It's decently statted, but like for a 10-cost troop, it should do something more. So yeah, I mean, in terms of some of the Battle Honors, as far as what they do, they might not be fantastic. I think the thought I had with them putting in the B is like, you can set that up and gain access to it. Now you've got Astravel, you've got some warlords who might have a Battle Honor, whether it's like Lucius or Rom,
Pyrrhus,
that can change the shape of how your opponent puts out the board if they know that threat exists.
I played a Decane deck the other day that was really cool, and just talking about Battle Honor and
Comek, yeah.
Jesus,
yeah.
like, I mean,
if you
he
let
dropped
that
thing
off,
and it was like,
what's its Battle Honor again?
He triggers the relentless of all your troops.
Oh, yeah.
And which includes himself, so he heals for 5.
Yeah, so he heals for 5.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, he's miserable if you let him build up a board and he sticks.
Yeah.
Another troop that has good stats for what it's got and a good Battle Honor. This may come as a surprise. Wordbearer main, Torgatol Squad.
Those guys are great.
3/4s, all ready for 3 energy. They're instantly statted higher, and they have Unstoppable. And Battle Honor here, Heal 2, gain Demon Host. There was nothing not to love about
the
those
Heal
guys.
2. The Heal 2 wasn't something that they had initially. They just had gain Demon Host, but once they gained Heal 2, we were like, now I can get multiple use out of this troop. Before it was like, okay, I'm going to get 1 Demon Host, and none of the Demon Hosts do stat buffs until you've got many more on them. But all of a sudden, now
the 6th one onward will.
Yeah, now they get Terror. Now they get Ward or Survivor 3. These guys are going places, and then they become nasty. And like you said, it's for 3 costs. Yeah, they're solid.
Yeah.
But
Oh yeah, they're win cons in of themselves.
But with that is, I mean, the one thing with Battle Honor, I think that holds it down, and you could argue that with Cleave too, is they are kind of contingent on your opponent playing a troop, right?
Oh yeah.
If your opponent has no troops, Battle Honor is going to be useless to you. It's not going to do you any good. So I could see Battle Honor, maybe Cleave. I don't know how you guys feel about Cleave, making it to the C tier.
Cleave, I like it, but in most cases, the cleave is low enough where it's like, yeah, it's 2 damage. I'm probably just going to hit the troop with it anyways.
Yeah, I mean, my thought process on having them where they are in the B tier was really more or less in terms of how they shape how your opponent plays once you've got a troop down, or once that threat is there, whether it is on your warlord or whether it's on a troop, they kind of shape how your opponent plays and sets up their board, because they don't want that Battle Honor triggering. They don't want that cleave being super effective and taking out, 2 to 3 units, depending on what you've got. So, that's the intent there. That's with what that's at. But they could move lower. I don't know. Pack being higher than Battle Honor. I mean, Pack's a little bit more consistently available, especially with like Lehman Russ. All you have to have is just have one of your units act, as opposed to Battle Honor taking out and killing a unit of your enemies and surviving. So, let's think about that. Let me take. I'm going to highlight these.
Pack is a lot less situational because hell, you can place it and then you get hit with your warlord and activates instantly. So you can have a lot of good opportunities with there, and some of the packs are really fun.
Oh yeah,
like any of them, like the 2/3s that just damage warlord. Like, boom, as Lehman Russ, I basically just became a 3 attack. What are you going to do about it?
Bale gaining attack and healing. The Dreadnought, which is just obscene. That's like a win con, basically.
My favorite win con with them, though, has to be Long Fang. It's not even pack. It's just, I'm going to gun you down and then hit you to face.
Oh, yeah. Those guys are, I love the units that have got the heavy bolters and the devastators. Like, every faction has got some sort of firing squad, and those are probably one of the best ones. Yeah,
Borgatol squad being a really fun one too. Deal 4 damage, gain a stack of demon host.
Yeah, Battle Honor. Well, it's like if the unit dies, gain a demon host, right?
Yeah. So if it's 4 and below, you just shoot it real quick, and then boom, you can gain a stack. And if that thing's got ward and survivor, you just got a consistent 4 damage ping on board.
And it's
can't really deal with
6 health, which is really nice. So
yeah, for 5 costs, they're pretty well statted. Well, basically, what I'm trying to say, the Word Bearers are a perfect faction. For those curious,
they've got all these things going for them. Play the Word Bearers.
Trying to convert more people to chaos. I think it's working.
I'm gonna highlight the Battle Honor and Cleave, because I think we could talk about maybe moving those, swapping those down to C tier, or maybe moving them lower in the B tier. Let's take a look at A tier. So A tier on here, I've got Perfection, Courage, Demon Host, Shield.
Wow, really going to do me dirty like that?
That's right. Duplicitous.
Not put it S tier.
No, not quite.
Oh, definitely. It's too random. But
passive,
so
Psyker, abilities. When I mean abilities, I mean like abilities both on the warlord as well as on troops. A reactor, sentenced, and first strike. So thoughts?
I'm honestly surprised Demon Host isn't lower because of its random nature.
Well, I thought about that when Demon Host being on here being lower because of its randomness. The thing is everything that it gains
is so good.
Is basically in B tier. I think the only exception is Flank and Ward, which are higher than it. Right, so it's either going to gain lower, or it's going to gain higher. So it just kind of felt weird putting it lower than what it can gain, because it's guaranteed to get one of those abilities.
But it's a gamble.
So,
you're saying something.
What was your sort of wording for A tier again?
So A tier, these are abilities that, regardless of your opponent, you can rely on these. You have control in terms of how they work, how they trigger. You know that you're going to get some effect, usage, something out of it. So perfection, you can play that, you can gain, you can trigger that, you can know how to set that up. Courage,
I would agree up to courage, because courage is really like there needs to be at least a troop on board, and there's plenty of mono nowadays.
Yeah, there is mono, but I mean, there's if at that point they've got other abilities, but like it is something where like you have an access where like, hey, you've got 2 troops on the board, I can play this courage and then deal with that troop. Like you've got control, like you can gain that effect. I see what you're, like if they're not playing with any troops, then you're kind of hosed. But like shield, duplicitous, duplicitous might not do a whole lot for you, but you're going to have a troop that is harder for your opponent to deal with. They're going to have to figure out a way to throw tactics or other troops at. They can't throw their warlord at. Psyker and reactor in of themselves don't do anything for you except provide you energy to use that you know you're going to get. That's a given. You're going to get this Psyker 2 or this Reactor 2 at the start of your turn that you can then use for weapon effects or Psyker abilities, or even just your regular ability at that turn or later down the road, and bank that up. So that's the thought process with all those. Like, you know, the first strike is the lowest on the list because if they don't have troops, or the troops have too high of health, it may be harder to execute. But if you have a troop with first strike on the board, you can easily, or with, you know, even especially if you got first strike and flank, you can really easily set up where that attack goes to help control the board. So that was the thought process with the A tier, where these were ones that you really have a bigger control as far as how to get something out of it, and you're guaranteed to get something out of this trait.
Yeah. So, second NG systems like Psyker and Reactor are always good because of 2 reasons. I mean, one, obviously they provide a separate source of resources, but also it means that you can use your hand more effectively because you have, you essentially have more resources with which to, spend your money.
Mm-hmm.
And in the factions that have it, they can be quite annoying.
Yes.
To say the least.
So why? So I mean, just out of interest. So why have you put? What was it? So why have you? It's kind of jumping ahead a little bit, but what for you? What makes mutation so much better than Demon Host?
Mutation being better than Demon Host is the fact that you get to choose out of the 3.
Yeah.
Versus Demon Host, which is just random. You have a better degree of choosing mutation, number 1, but also they can stack, whereas Demon Host doesn't. A
couple mutations are just like stat increases, so you can drop him and he's already a 3 attack higher.
Yeah, so that's in terms of that regard. Like you can get, not only are you going to guarantee to get an effect, but you have a greater chance of getting the effect that you want.
So I'm trying to say is, e.g., I need you to go and make every Demon Host somehow increase my stats. I want my Dark Murder to drop, and he's already a 10-10, but on his rally.
You just have to play with Dark Apostle, man.
Listen, it's an option, but I'm not doing it for moral reasons. God.
So any other thoughts on the A tier list, as it is right
now? No, I'm pretty comfortable with that.
Yeah, I think the only one I'd question would have been like Axel said was courage, but you sort of defended it quite robustly. So
yeah, it's something where it's like it's an effect that is really hard for the opponent to stop, but there's also complete decks that 100% shut it down.
Yeah,
that's fair. I mean, but you could say that with several of these, not too many.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, it is. If you play an effect and you get the courage, you get the courage effect. Like that's what's going to happen. So then moving into S tier then. So we're at S tier. These are the best. These are the immediate impact or straight up deny interaction with your from your opponent. It's going to make them harder to deal with this card, work around this card, and or just give you the upper hand without having to worry about your opponent, how they're going to react to it. So at the top of the list, we've got fast, sneak attack, flank, resolution, rally, ward, relentless, mutation, stealth, and precognition. Relentless is the only one that I was debating on having as an S tier, but my only thoughts with it were, in terms of if like that will trigger, like the only thing that your opponent can do with a relentless effect, if it's a troop, they can get rid of the troop. But if you've got a warlord who has a relentless effect, whether it's a card or it's a basic, like it's a forge complex or it's an ability, that's going to happen every turn, and really they have to figure out some other way to work around it. I have relentless in my list kind of highlighted to possibly be lower. But that's the only one that I was kind of on the fence about. But I do feel like there's not a whole lot that your opponent can do to prevent a relentless effect from triggering, other than, removing those troops that have relentless. But what are your guys' thoughts?
I'm pretty comfortable with the rest of it. I do believe relentless should be like A tier, because in the warlord case, yeah, you're not stopping it. But in the cases of things like, I'm snapping my finger to remember its name, troops, it's relentless is such a gamble, because if relentless was amazing, man, Iron Hands would actually stand a chance.
That's true.
Yeah, I think it looks good. I mean, if I was feeling controversial, I might question flank. No, like, I know this sounds really strange, but like gut feeling, it feels weird seeing fast and flank in the same tier, because fast is just like it's like the upgrade to flank, but that's not necessarily congruent. I don't know why it just it feels weird to me.
Well, that's fair, because when I was ranking them, I was like, it was hard for me to rank them too far apart at the same time too, because it was like, flank is good, fast is better, period. Like, I can't deny that, but I can't put flank too much further from fast, because it gives immediate access, and the only downside to it is either your warlord, your enemy warlord, has got frontline, or they have no troops. Like, that's the only downside to flank. So I can't say it's like 3 degrees lower. It's still like fast is better, but how much better? Like, it's not, they're in the same category, but they're not too far apart. So I understand that, because I felt the same thing when I was doing the list. I'm like, I can't knock flank any lower. I feel like it's still justified.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so other thoughts? S tier?
Where do you think you're going to put Bastion, by the way?
I was going to ask you guys that.
Sorry.
That's okay. No, first off, you guys tell me. So, given the way the tiers are defined, or kind of the explanation that I've given for the tiers, where would you guys put Bastion? Given not with the cars, like, in a ideal situation, Star Wars, like, just as it is a trait on a card, it has Bastion, and that affects how your opponent or how you play it. How would you rank that?
I mean, I don't know how controversial this is, but I feel like it's at least A tier.
I was going to put it around B, because it is only useful on defense. But it's primarily in a Legion where they really want it to be on defense. So at the time, yeah, I can agree on an A.
Mm-hmm.
Although, to be fair, Scuff did say without context, and actually that's probably quite important. So yeah, I guess B might be more really, like, we're not looking at the Legion as it is. Maybe B. I was just thinking, because like a lot of the arguments that we've used feel so, like with courage, for example, like there's the assumption that there's always going to be troops type thing, or like at some point you're going to be able to use it. And I was thinking with Bastion, like like, there's. So I was thinking, like, in the context of that 4 energy one, the
Stone Gauntlet?
Not.
Or the troop?
Well, I
or
mean,
are you talking about
obviously,
Stalwart
I was
Defenders?
Thinking, Stalwart Defenders, like, in that sort of that relentless type thing, is that there's always going to be something to assign that to, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I kind of feel like it's a B tier as well. Because, I mean, just without context, because like in an ideal situation, you get Stalwart Defenders, Bastion is going to improve from B to A, like, period, like, because those things will stick, you can use them more reliable, and there's other combos that interact with that. But as it is, you've got a troop that's got Bastion 3, and, I mean, currently, we've only been in 1 week. It may be tweaked, Bastion may be tweaked, the stats on these cards may be tweaked, who's to say? But as it is currently, you got Bastion 3 on a troop that's got 2 health. It's good to sit there and soak up extra damage to be used for something at some point. Yes, it will soak
Out
up
of
the
context,
damage.
that's but when you look at something like Dorn's Reckoning, you
Right.
go, oh,
Yeah.
I'm just feeding my
Yeah,
reckoning.
like you're like, okay, I'm throwing out this troop one time. It buys me time in the same way, kind of, in the same way that, precognition, or not precognition, or duplicitous, or stealth, which, I mean, precognition and stealth are S tier, duplicitous is A tier, but there's no, that's it. I mean, like, they can be targeted and they can be removed, whereas this is just extra health on the defense, and that's really it. Like, I mean, it's better than Drop Pod, because it doesn't go away, but it doesn't do anything else for you beyond that. It doesn't deny your opponent from attacking with face. It doesn't deny flankers from hitting them, or tactics being deployed on them. So yeah, I feel like B tier is how I would rank it on its own, just as Bastion. I don't know in the scope of things within this list, like, where would I put it? Would I put it above Frontline? A Terror, I mean, in a matchup, Terror beats Bastion any day.
Oh yeah,
but as they are currently. But I don't know. Like, would I put it above? I would put it above Survivor. I'll be honest. I will put it above Survivor, because you can gain Bastion 8, and Survivor's limited to that unit's health. That's a good question. Like, where I would put it here, but I agree. I think it's a B tier. You guys think A, or do you guys think B?
I'm thinking B. If you look at it outside of Imperial Fist.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was getting carried away with the Imperial Fists.
Oh yeah, the Imperial Fists are made in a way where Bastion, it snowballs out of control.
Yeah,
they
make it better. I mean, by far, it's their mechanic. They make it better, but just as the trait is on itself, if you don't get the right support, you can have units with Bastion that aren't going to do anything. But yeah, so B for Bastion. There you go. And I'm looking forward to, at some point, seeing where whatever the traits are that the Sisters of Silence are going to have, and the Agents of the Sigil are going to have, where they're going to fit in here. So let's take a look then. So we highlighted a couple to talk a table back as far as where we could move them around to. Unstoppable. You guys think it should be a B tier, or do you think C tier?
Part of me wants to move it up a tier, but part of me also just says it's something that's not going to come into immediate effect till next turn and can potentially just not be used the entire game.
Landing is the Blood Angels trait, right?
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, is Requiem even on this?
You know what?
Yeah, landing's B.
Requiem is.
Oh, did I not?
Isn't it?
Did I not notice it?
Landing's B. I thought I had Requiem on here. Did I miss Requiem?
I don't see Requiem.
Oh, this must be
Scuff, how dare you?
the one trait was the Blood Angels. I left Requiem off. Well, let's put Requiem on here. Come on, let's do it, guys. Where would you put Requiem?
I'd drop it like B or C.
You think?
Yeah, simply because of the fact that I can drop a troop and then face bash the thing I just already have on board to insta-trigger it.
Well, yeah, but that's more reliable. That's more consistent. Would that not be an A?
Yeah, that's what I mean. It would also require me to have a troop on it and be adjacent. I don't know. I think
in of itself, I think it to get the most out of it, it's quite situational, and also how many times are you necessarily going to trigger it might also be something to consider.
So we're thinking B for
on
Blood
a
Angels?
warlord. On warlords, I think it's significantly better than on a troop because the warlord ain't leaving.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Miros gets mileage off of his Requiem, and if you've got
Sanguinius and Reckoning,
that Reckoning, or you've got the Carmine Blade. Whoo.
Oh yeah, that's got some potential there, and you can't work around that as the other player because you're going to delete that troop, and unless you can somehow put a troop in between them, which there's very specific scenarios in which that can even happen. You're gonna have to put up with that thing getting a bit of a Requiem trigger.
Well, so the B for Blood Angels. Requiem gets on here. Bastion's in the B category. Requiem above, below Survivor, above, below Frontline. What do you guys think?
Definitely not above Survivor. 'Cause Survivor is just,
I would put it towards the bottom, honestly. I would put Requiem probably above Landing.
Yeah, because Landing can easily be stopped by just smacking the drop pod once. Well, assuming not hernia. I like to say hernia.
Right, but I mean, like, your opponent they're forced to respond. If they can't respond, you'll get the Landing. Requiem, if they're forced to respond in a certain way, but you can also still kind of control to trigger that with your own cards if you got faster flanking troops that land next to it. So I could see that being better than Landing.
Yeah. The only time you can pop Landing early is Wisp Flank, which a really fun combo is Moritat Cyrus, I believe his name is. No, Cyrus is the name of the...
He's a 6/5, but you're thinking
is he that?
Angel's Tears?
Yeah. No, not even that. I'm getting him mixed up with the Orphans of War Moritat, because there are several Moritats in game, and they all have similar names.
Oh, Moritat Pyrrhus?
No, I think Tiberius... Well, we all know what we're talking about here, and for the viewers at home, he's a 6/5.
Yeah, the legendary. Yeah.
Giving him flank just makes him stick to the board as well after he deletes a high damage troop. Because if you go to attack it, it dies before you take the damage, so you just have a 6/5 and that's gone.
Yeah.
Which in of itself is a pretty nice combo, but it requires a bunch of cards. Or that one that... What's it called? Force Command? The 3/5 that gives flank to a drop pod troop while also having a Requiem to draw a card.
Yeah.
That's a good troop.
And it's got 5 health too, which makes it nice and sticky.
His attack's low enough though, so you can bounce him. But if someone's wasting their Melgator on a 3/5, that is just going to give flank to drop pod troops, and there might be a problem with that guy's game plan.
They might not have the best hand if that's the case. They're like, I'm just buying time. Please give me the cards I need. Or if they play the Mortar Strike and they hope for that lucky hit.
Which I like to add, I swear to God, my Vulcan has a Mortar Strike magnet on his head, because every time they use Mortar Strike, it will never hit any of my troops and just hit my face.
Well, that's thematic, though, because that's what happened. It is fun.
What happened to him was more like having a nuke dropped on his head than a single artillery strike.
That was such a great passage. And, like, for, 8 books later, I don't know how many books it was, like I just thought that was it. Like, when are we going to find out what happened to Vulcan? He had a nuke dropped on him. That's what happened. Like, you don't need to know anything else.
Man's literally got nuked.
That was and then that was before they really introduced the, he's a perpetual thing. Like, it wasn't until, was it Unremembered Empire? Or was like when you realized that he was with Night Haunter? I forget what book that was. I think that was Unremembered Empire. No, Unremembered Empire was when it was when he escaped Kurz and he crashed into Macragge. So that might have been when you found out that Vulcan is alive and he's a perpetual. But up until that point, like, he was like, how does he survive a nuke? He's a Primarch, but I mean, the guy got nuked.
The rules of what kills a Primarch and what doesn't kill a Primarch is so inconsistent.
That's to be fair. There is, like, you could have a Demon Blade cut your head off, or you can shrug off being stepped on by a Titan. It really kind of ranges, doesn't it?
Yeah. You can be sucked into the vacuum of space, or you can be stabbed by a woman with a latex fetish. Either or.
I'm willing to believe that if Space Marines can survive in the vacuum of space for a limited time, a Primarch definitely should be able to.
Oh yeah. Well, it's mainly their equipment that helps the Space Marine do it.
Hey, listen, I'm gonna trigger right now, but if Princess Leia can survive in the cold of space,
Scuff, we both know that you're only doing this to hurt us, but you're also hurting yourself.
Myself.
I'm sorry, that film was ridiculous. So,
oh no, Virus! I got to stop you quick. If you don't stop, he's not going to stop either.
It was ridiculous.
No, you triggered me. No, it's too early in the morning for that.
I'm taking a step back and I'm just going to watch the show because this is what's going to happen.
So bad. Come on. I mean, really? Like, it's just the whole thing.
My name is Axel Manning, and welcome to another episode of Scuff Does Not Like the New Star Wars.
Just, it made me so mad. Like, here's the thing. Like, it ended. We're like 2 years later, and I'm still hot over it. Like, and
wait, was the last movie really 2 years ago?
I think it was. It was 2 or 3 years. No, it had to be like 3 years ago.
God, time is passing by fast.
Like, it's still is hot for me because it's just not a good movie. Like, I had hoped, like, as time went on, like, okay, well, maybe the next one will redeem it, or maybe I'll watch it a second time and I'll feel a little bit better about it. And no, like, every time I watch it,
with time.
all it does is it totally, like, makes me feel like
food.
The brief amount that I enjoyed from The Force Awakens was pointless. And then you watch the Rise of Skywalker, you're like, I don't even derive any enjoyment from that the god awful thing that it's called, and there was it, The Last Jedi. So like, basically that was kind of the turning stone of sucking all the joy that I found remaining in Star Wars out of it. And I'm going to go bitter here, but listen, I get that they are, they've marketed the movies, or they've made the movies for a different audience and a different generation. That's fine. Great. I hope that there's lots of kids that really like Star Wars, and I don't care if it's Kylo Ren and Rey, or Finn, or Poe Dameron, that they're really into. If they don't know who Luke Skywalker and Princess Leia are, that's a shame, but that's fine that they're going to have their own heroes. But it's not a good movie. And anybody who like watches it and like actually legitimately says like, oh, it was such a good story, I'm like, fuck you. It wasn't.
The only thing I take away from it that makes me happy is the guy who plays Kylo Ren, whose name is escaping me, is actually a really good actor.
Adam Driver's is solid. Yeah,
Adam Driver. He's a solid actor, does some amazing roles, and he was good in that movie.
Yeah.
It's just the movie was not good.
It was not good.
The second film just really frustrated me because essentially, like, so that fleet action was entirely avoidable.
Yeah.
Like, the plot is predicated on the Admiral having a problem with Poe.
Yeah. The whole
and
thing.
It's like, but like on the basis that the guy's Poe, it's like and like the Poe's character shift is just completely like it's incongruent with the first film. So like in the first film, like Poe is this reliable, strategic, talented guy, and then like the first scene of the second film is like, I'm a moron, wee bombing, and it's like, what the fuck? And then like the Admiral just goes, you're a dick. I'm not going to let you do the right thing.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, that's how this film is going to go, is it?
Right. They're like, oh, okay, so like, well, then I am going to do the right thing, and I'm going to do it the wrong way. And then guess what? It won't matter anyways, because none of it matters. And by the way, space fuel? Like, when? Since when? Since when? In 9 movies, and even following that, like, I don't recall anywhere in The Rise of Skywalker that somebody's like, oh, you know what, though, before we make this jump for this final engagement, do we have enough space fuel in all of our ships? Like, that's never been a thing. That's never been a thing. Like, I'm willing to buy the fact that maybe space fuel is a thing if you had made it a thing previously, but also, like, you're going to tell me that, like, these capital ships, their whole basis of the fleet, they don't have enough fuel. So that if they don't have enough fuel, then how the hell does the giant capital fleet that's chasing them have enough fuel to keep up with the chase? Like, or do they just have better miles to the gallon? Like, how does that work?
The only logical solution.
because like I mean obviously the problem is we're talking about Disney and films, and like fleet logistics are really not a high priority on their things, but like so yeah, it is that sort of thing. Is like, you know, the I can't remember what it's called now, but the capital ship that the you know the rebels have,
The home one, yeah.
like it's well, I'm trying to remember what the actual ship class
Mon Cal
is.
cruiser.
There we go.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it seems inconceivable that and like it's a pretty big ship. It seems inconceivable that that would be like significantly less fuel efficient than, you know, like a Star Destroyer.
Right.
Like,
Right, exactly.
You know,
the Star Destroyer's got these 3 giant mega engines that are just burning blue hot white, and the Mon Cal's got like some smaller engines. The Mon Cal looks like a Prius, you know, compared to like, you know, a Mustang or something. I mean,
The thought process was always nuclear reactor inside of it that was just kind of like sustaining itself. So why do we need fuel?
right. That's I mean, in old canon, I believe that actually was a thing. Like they had a power core. They didn't have like gas tanks. You know, it's not. You're gonna tell like, come on. I mean,
like space NASCAR, man. Like,
really it.
gotta get my fuel, man.
Because when it comes down to it, the plot of that entire movie was hinged on 3 things, right? We don't have enough gas. We don't talk to each other good enough. And then, like, the third thing is really, like, we're trying to just draw this out. Like, we don't have a plan. Like, that's really, and I think that was, like, evident with the movie. It was like, we don't have a plan. Just stick with us for 2 hours. And at the end of it, we'll get to our destination. That's really where it's going to be. We don't know what we're doing. Like, what are we going to do with Luke? Don't know. No idea. Let's just chuck that lightsaber. Well, what's he going to do with Rey? Don't know. Like, you know, she walk around this island for a week or 2. I don't know. Like, maybe she finds herself, or maybe she doesn't. Who knows? We'll get there. Maybe she shows up at the end. All that matters.
And Rogue One was so good.
Yeah, Rogue One was great. Rogue One was a solid film. I liked Rogue One. I'm also a fan. I mean, Solo has its problems, but it is a trope movie, and it's enjoyable.
Obvious that it was cut down from a full, like, longer film.
Solo was just better than The Last Jedi. Like, it suffered. Solo suffered because The Last Jedi bombed and was an offense to all mankind. But
an offense to humanity.
Solo
a war
was
crime,
better
if you would.
And I apologize for going off on this, but god damn.
I think my favorite one of the sort of the new generation of films was that one where, you know, many Bothans died.
Yes.
but like, because
I love that game.
I was gonna get much. Like, because I thought that was really good because like you know, there was a moment where I was like, oh my god, like they're going to kill the robot, and that's like somehow going to justify, like, you know, some great loss, and then they ended up killing everyone else anyway. I was like, yes, everyone dies. You know, I was like, this is unnaturally dark for Disney.
Yeah.
Which was good.
It was.
If it makes you feel better, by the way, Scott. If it makes you feel better, I remember reading, I think it was a Reddit or something like that, but someone basically did the maths of, like, you know, which fleet would win in, like, Star Wars versus Warhammer, and it was something daft, like at the height of the Imperium, like as in the height of the sort of Star Wars Empire, where there's some like 10,000 ships. If they all shot their weapons like 15 times, they might take out the shield of like an Imperial frigate. It was just nuts.
That's the thing with 40K. It's like when you're trying to do the dick measuring contest of what fantasy world is better, 40K is constantly doing that against itself and one-upping itself, where you're not going to win.
It really does.
You're not going to win.
40K is like, look, like, you've got the Star Destroyer. That's cool. Like, it can destroy a planet. How about
I have a battle barge?
Yeah, we have things that like fucking wipe out entire systems, but not just
my
like
Death Star can destroy a planet.
Like
my trading ship has a Death Star mounted on the bottom. What up?
Yeah, we have ships that like devour the essences of entire like species on these planets. We have like plagues. Like, it doesn't, like, the war in 40K is waged so much differently than Star Wars. It doesn't compare. Like, Star Wars is fantastic and fun, and I enjoyed it as a kid. I enjoyed it.
It's noble bright, compared to grimdark.
But like, you have to accept it what it is. It's just the same thing when people are like, oh, like Superman and Goku, who would win? Like, okay, first off, you're comparing apples to oranges. Like,
yeah, but I would like to make the argument Goku, because no matter what, he'll just double his strengths at the end of the episode, and then the fight's over.
It all depends on who's right. Are they fighting on Earth under the sun? I mean, what are we going? Spirit Bomb? Are we going Golden Age Superman? Are we going Silver Age Superman? I think Silver Age Superman could take Goku out. Like, hard, like in multiple ways. Like, he could go back in time, he could, but at the same time, I mean, are we asking, like, is this a fight to the death? Because Superman won't do that, and Goku would just see if he could win. Like, so the only thing holding him back is, can I beat you? Like, I don't know.
I'm just gonna say it. Superman's a dick.
It depends. He ain't wrong. It depends on the Superman. I mean, I think there have been those moments where you're like, come on, Superman, stop being the Boy Scout.
Well, there's Murderer Man. I'm fairly certain there's a website where basically they take like comic strips of Superman, they just take them completely out of context.
Oh, there's got to be some great ones.
Well, yeah, and you can take a lot of comic strips out of context. I mean, especially the older ones where, like, they use different terms for different things that nowadays you're like, I wouldn't go around saying that. Soups, come on, man.
I don't know why, but we were talking about comics earlier today with some friends, and it fucking killed me when my buddy was like complaining about how comics will sometimes just do one word on an entire page, and he just yelled out the word "fawang" for the noise that Captain America's shield works. And I had been drinking earlier this morning, so I just died.
That's funny.
For a good 30 minutes of my buddy just exclaiming, "Thwang is a page."
It's a really powerful page when he throws his shield.
Very powerful word, swang.
Thwang, snicked,
Thwang,
thwip, and kaboom, krakatoon, whoosh. And now we're just getting to onomatopoeia, but I mean,
at this point,
yeah.
I could just listen to Scuff making like sound effects all day.
I'm not even making sound effects. I'm like literally just like saying them out loud.
Saying words.
Like,
that's enough for us.
Squeak.
But like, so I think what you should do, Scuff, is you should do like a video where like one of your Horus Heresy games, like every time one of your guys does something, you should just narrate it with like, cartoon.
Right. Yeah, completely dub over the in-game sound effects.
Yeah, turn down all the sound effects. I'm like, now this game is the Scuff sound effects. What is this? What do I think this sounds like? Is it a bolt of fire? Maybe it's bolt of fire that sounds like poo, 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 poo.
Oh, it has to be with a new Legion you haven't played yet, though, and you have to have the audio off guessing what the sound effect for each card is.
Yeah, well, when they changed the animations for the sentry turrets to the little lasers, like, I immediately felt better because in my head, I visualized the pew-pew. Like, pew, pew, pew. And they get those tiny little laser lines, but they're just impactful,
Yeah.
Well, speaking of YouTube channels, I think we should get into the plugs. Pyrrhus, what you got? What do you want to plug? You want to plug yourself?
Sure, why not? Just my name is my account, Pyrrhus of Epirus.
How do you spell it?
Currently, Pyrrhus of, and then Epirus is Epirus. This is why no one watches my videos, because no one can spell my name. I'm currently like doing two things. So I'm setting up obviously some videos for the qualifiers for the World Cup, because I'm in the process of doing that for the United Kingdom, because apparently we're one country now.
You're united.
Tell that to the Irish players. See what happens.
Wait, so I missed that. Do you guys have Ireland and Scotland in the UK, or are they different teams?
So we have the United Kingdom as a single group, because there were two Scottish players. So they've just been bundled in to England, which has not only enraged the Scottish, because they're not fans of us right now, but they've also enraged Steve, because Steve is violently English, So
That's a good way to describe them.
That's funny.
So that's a big. I think as Steve would describe it. I think in the qualifiers we've cleansed the bloodlines. I think it is fully English now. But yeah, so I'm going to be doing some videos on that very soon, and like you mentioned at the beginning, I'm recording videos for all of the Blood Bowl games in the Scranes League, so that's what I'm up to.
All right. Well, you can check those out if you're interested in scoping out the videos for more content on YouTube, for whether it's Horse Heresy or Blood Bowl 2 action. If you're curious about how that works out, it's been we've had some fun games. We played this afternoon, and that was a good pairing up. Even though I lost, I felt like I won. I got my one push, my solid drive. It was the slowest.
The real win was the friends we made along the way.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. It was like, look, this is going to take me did it take me 6 turns to get up the field?
It was
with the ball?
6 turns. 6 turns. I do apologize for that.
That's the most turtly I've ever played, ever. And it was at the same time, though, it was the right way to play. It was the right way. Axel, you got anything? Go ahead.
No, I was just saying I was going. I got quite lucky. I was going for the 1-1 draw, and it was fortuitous that I got that Beastman down in the end.
Yeah, made me sad. You got anything to plug, Axel?
Well, this episode is also sponsored by Nurgle brand cough syrup. It's it's just a bottle of mucus.
It's just the Mucinex guy.
Yep.
Okay.
But besides that, I guess I'll plug Dorn. Because, artist buddy of ours. Made my profile picture, made Blackouts. You've probably seen that one, Pyrrhus. The little crab.
Yeah.
That's everything will be Arbites on Instagram, space in between all of that, and Drew Lee Clark. He does art. He's good at it.
All right. Well, I've already talked about the deck list contest for May. I'm going to plug that just as a reminder to get those submissions out. Start now. But I'm also going to plug Bar Night Legions. I think Bar Night Legions is scheduled the next.
Oh, God, your format.
Oh, this format's, come on, baby. This is the Coyote Ugly format. This format, this is going to be, the next one is May 14th. This is the Coyote Ugly format for Bar Night Legions. If you're interested in playing, it's 8 p.m. U.S. Central, so I know we're 6 hours difference on the U.K., so I think it might be too late. Unfortunately, I'm hoping come summertime that'll change and I can have some earlier, but that's just my scheduling. But this format here, this is what we're talking about. This is hot stuff. The Coyote Fugly. It is Fugly. You're playing with decks that you normally wouldn't be caught dead with. First off, these are the rules. Number 1, no legendary warlords. Okay. Number 2, only 1 epic card allowed, and this would include your warlord if you take him as an epic warlord. Number 3, 2 rare cards allowed, which includes your warlord. Your deck must include one of the following choices: Crucial Choice, Portmaw, Termite Drill, Abyssa, or 2 times Legacy of Byzaz, 2 times Cyclorath, or 2 times Wounded Zealots, and then everything else must be commons.
Joke's on you, but my Argyle Tall can do that, no problem.
I figured the Wounded Zealot with the Word Bearers is probably the safest way to go, but I could see some interesting things there with Crucial Choice, quite frankly. So we shall see how it goes, but that, if you're interested in playing some casual fun, having some drinks, having some chat, Bar Night Legions is the way to do it. We're going to have it. May 14th is the next one that we're doing. You can take a look at the Discord to find out signups on Challenge, and there'll probably be a Bar Night Legions closer to the end of May as well. I'm trying to do them twice a month. Sometimes it may or may not happen depending on schedule, but currently that's where we're at. I'm also going to plug deck slots because by the time the Sisters of Silence come out tomorrow, if you're listening to this on Thursday, our deck slot will be full, and we'll need a whole new row to house the Agents of the Sigilate. So let's get more deck slots in there. And then, just to be nice, I'm going to continue to plug the tournament scene. I mean, that's not really being nice. I always hype up the tournaments. I really enjoy them. play the weekly tournament. I don't get to play it myself, but I think it's a great way for you to get engaged with the players, win gold, win legendary cards, test out new decks. It's a great, especially when we've got new factions out. It's a great way to pick up cards if you don't have enough gold to buy crates. That's about it. There's a lot of good stuff going on. I see a lot of activity in the Discord. A lot of people kind of come back, or at least on Facebook too, kind of interested. I've got a couple of friends who stopped playing the game a while ago, and with all the ads that Everguild has got going on Facebook, I've seen them express interest, kind of looking back into the game. So that's always good to see, and I'd like to see it continue. So.
Getting Chapter Master Valric in on this was a good idea in the long run.
Yeah, that was really good. Like I know I caught his stream because I know he did the preview for Dorn and
I saw he wouldn't stop calling Erlen Karn for some reason.
Oh yeah, and then he did a stream. And that was interesting, like because he's a low ranked player, and it's been I think from what I recall, the last time he played might have been like Istvan 3, because like he was playing people who were playing Alpha Legion and Stealth and Traps, and it was like all foreign language to him, like he didn't know what was going on. And it was interesting because I was watching it with the view like, this is what the average new player or returning players, again, like they don't know what's going on. They're trying to figure out how to play the game and at the same time, enjoy. It looked like he was having a good enough time, but at the same time it was like, there's things that, it's a whole different lenses, like experienced player playing for 3 years. I know what all these cards do. I know what the ideal move is. And you've got somebody else who's like, I just want to play this card. I have no idea what my opponent is doing. I'm putting down this card, not realizing that his warlord can do X, Y, and Z. Yeah, it was fun.
Smart. Good marketing tool.
I think so. I think he got some, he tends to get a lot of people watching his stuff, so hopefully they pick up and check out the game, and even if they only, join in, and we get 1,000 players and 100 of them end up actually playing through for a while and really dive into the game, that's an increase in the player base, and that's always a good thing. So, all right. Well, all that being said, before we get on, we did plugs. We talked about the tier list. Pyrrhus, when you're not doing legions, what do you do?
Like as a sort of career type thing, or
just in general, just like in your free time?
Yeah.
What have you been doing lately?
So I'm a teacher of philosophy, politics, and religious education.
That was not what I expected, but that's interesting.
There's 3 different subjects, not all in one class.
We've now had 2 teachers on the podcast, Scuff. Can we get officially licensed as educational entertainment?
Then we should.
My god, that'd be so cool.
Because we had definitely not your physics teacher on earlier, who so happened to be definitely a physics teacher.
Nice. So other than that, really, I divide time between work, playing computer games, and then obviously my son and my wife. So that's like all there is to me, really.
All right. And when you're doing teaching, were you teaching online before COVID, or have you been just shifted to primarily online since then?
So we've had 3 lockdowns, and during each lockdown, we've been teaching remotely. Our schools are back now, which is, nice. But yeah, in a way, teaching online was quite nice. It's meant that I've been able to spend a lot more time with my son, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. But equally, obviously, your sort of worry as a teacher is how much are they actually doing, and you as much as we all as teachers joke about the kids and how horrifying they are. We want them to do well. So having them back in school kind of facilitates, the best. That is the best place for them, basically. Get them off the street, get them in the schools. Protect our elderly. I've done quite a bit of online teaching, but I'm quite glad to be back in school, to be honest.
All right. So that's good. I've got friends who are teachers in Las Vegas from where I moved, and they've done much more of the online. I think they're still doing online learning primarily, but every school is different. Every school district here is different, and I've had that as a parent on my end where my daughter's doing all online for this whole year, but most schools are either hybrid. We haven't had in the States the lockdown preferences or opinions have varied immensely. So some schools are just hey, everybody, we're open. How do you do busing? How do you do classrooms? So just in general, having her here to do online learning full time through the entire school year has been trying, but at the same time, I feel like she's gotten a lot out of it. And I know that the teachers in the school have had a heck of a time managing, trying to organize that, trying to stay on top of that for their classrooms to make sure that their students have got materials to learn, as well as, if they're going to do remote learning, how are they going to have access to it? Do they have the technology? And that stuff has changed, on a day-by-day basis sometimes, depending on if there was a spike in reported numbers or new policy rolled out, okay, well, now we can't do this anymore, so or somebody's reported that they've got the bug, so this whole classroom is affected. So thank you for teaching and continue to teach wherever you are in the world. You're in the UK, yes?
Yeah.
Okay, it's not. I don't talk to too many teachers other than the friends that I've got on, like I said, in Vegas. So that's not.
I'm just gonna say now, a teacher in Vegas sounds like the beginning of a joke, because Vegas is that foreign of a concept to me. I forget that it's a real location.
It is a real location,
not just a casino.
I will tell
in the middle of a desert.
Yeah, before we go, I will say this: Las Vegas is. Growing up in Las Vegas, I was born and raised in Las Vegas. So
the basements, a fond memory of yours.
Yeah, the basements. But I always thought Vegas was number one at everything you didn't want to be number one at. The only thing that they could be boast that they were at the time was jobs. You could get a job in Vegas, whether it was service industry, whether you work at the casino, whether you were working, there was, and beyond the casinos, there was lots of other standard jobs, doctors, dentists, hospitals, teachers. There was always huge opportunity for jobs, but teen pregnancy, teen suicide rate, teen dropout rate, suicide rate in general, everything bad, gambling debt. Everything bad.
Vegas number one
in the country. And as a kid in high school, you could drop out of high school and go park cars at the casinos and get paid more than somebody who was going to college and working full time. So where's the incentive to go to school? It was terrible, and it's still the case. And then on top of that, the state itself doesn't. Every time there's a budget cut, the first topic that gets cut is education. They don't look at mining, they don't look at gaming, they don't look at the BLM. It's no, we gotta cut that education budget. And so it was always, every year it's the same thing. It's just terrible. Education in Vegas, in Nevada in general, but in Las Vegas, I love Las Vegas, but don't send your kids there to go to school. It's just not a place to do that with.
Yeah.
So foreign, I refuse to believe it has schools and not just casinos.
Well, they do have. Listen, they've got both, and they also have casino schools, and they have schools about hotel management, because look, if you're gonna, if like that is a legit. If you didn't know, that's a legit college level course. You can get
we have it around here too.
You can get a bachelor in hotel management. Well, that's what they specialize in Las Vegas. Like that's they're proud of that. Like,
money borrowing.
Yeah, listen, hotels need to be managed by skilled people. I don't want some run of the mill guy off the street fluffing my towels.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's really. I hadn't really thought about it that way, because you don't really think of Vegas as a normal place, because I think in many respects, like, I don't mean this in a sort of corny way, but it is sort of it's quite a special
place. It's got a reputation.
It does.
Yeah.
The Strip is just one road. I mean, like there are side roads.
Listen, you say that, but we got a road in Toronto that's like several kilometers long. Like, that road takes up the size of several cities.
Oh, I mean, hey, Las Vegas Boulevard goes through most of the town, and part of Las Vegas. There are places on the Strip you don't want to go. Like, I mean, and not just
contrary to popular belief, I'm gonna go everywhere, and you can't stop me.
Don't go in the dark corners of Fremont Street at night. Like, it's not pleasant.
I like my odds.
It's not good. It's not good.
As a man of crime, I like my odds.
Don't go to Skin City. That's what they called. I think they called certain aspects.
You give me a name like that, you can't stop me now. Like, you can't. You just tell me what the dark scary place. You give me a nickname like Skin City, and then say don't go there.
City.
That's already got my attention.
And it's not a place. I'm not talking about where the tattoo parlors are. I'm talking about like the darkest. Like, these parts are like concrete and desert dirt that have been forgotten, even though the lights of the city still are like, not even like, half a mile away, flashing on these abandoned, broken buildings and the ramshackle residents that may live within Skin City. It's true, it exists. Just don't go.
Man, you've already sold me.
Just like looking at, I don't know why I've thought this, is just obviously looking at Axel's profile pic. Just my mental image right now of Skin City is just, a legion of like crab street vendors and like selling literal like human skin.
That's my side job on the weekends. It's how I make extra dough.
Just
can't be blamed.
Axel on the weekend with his little farm of people who's going to like, flail it, just going, it puts the lotion in the basket.
Now, I don't think you were here for this the entire time, or you might have not heard this episode, rather, where we just went on about the Las Vegas basements. So that's totally a thing that can go on.
I created a bumper for it. It was actually, I was holding off. Hang on, let me send this bumper here, because this was fun. I made a soundbite for it. Like, I took all the little bits that we got, and I was like, yeah, let's do it. Let's try that out. I'll send that over the chat so you can listen to it. But no, like Vegas is an interesting beast. Like, people will just park a cooler of water on the sidewalk on the Strip and just sell you bottles of water. It's not a business. They just went to Sam's Club and bought a 54-pack case of water and are selling it for $3 a pop to tourists.
Now, when you said the original pull-up with a thing of water, I assumed he had like a water cooler and he just had a little like a faucet and would pour it into a water bottle and hand it to you, which is 10 times more suspicious. But I would still love the idea of purchasing water from that man for the random chance of, that's laced.
Yeah, they get you, or like there are people that they don't work for the casinos, they don't work for the city. They get like Halloween costumes, and I'm not talking like cosplay level costumes or like Disney level costumes.
I'm imagining it was bought at the Canadian Dollar store.
They went to Party Store R Us and they bought like an Optimus Prime or a Batman costume and they put it on and they just walk around the Strip to pose for pictures. But they're not licensed. They're not official. Like this. One day I'm we're gonna have to do a party and like travel to Vegas and like I will reluctantly show you the sites.
The HHL crew goes to Skin City.
Yes, HHL Skin City Strip. Let's go.
Do we have you in for this, Virus?
I mean,
get your passport.
With a name like Skin City,
well, I'll start saving now.
You'll need it because it's Vegas, so you may decide to try gambling. You never know.
it's just fact of life. It will happen.
All right. Well, we're at that
Vegas
2 hour
is
mark.
inevitable.
Thank you for waking up early on your side of things to have the chat with us and go over things and introduce yourself and kind of get everything out there. Appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
I can hear sleep taking a toll on you, Pyrrhus. Man's is getting tired.
Yeah. Well, it's probably 6 a.m. there.
Yeah, 6 a.m. But it's a bank holiday weekend for us, so I've got Monday off.
That's nice. All right. Well, I
So
will
it's
let you
2 a.m.
go.
my time, so I'm getting tired as well.
Yeah. Thank you guys for hanging out, and we'll talk again next week.
No problem.
All right.
Cheers, guys.
Bye.
Peace.
Bye.